Hi everyone, my name is Agnes Fries and I'm the creator of an online design tool called the Grid Designer. The Grid Designer is used to create color charts for multiple crafts that includes cross stitch, latch hook, crochet, knitting, corner to corner crochet, and basically any craft where you need to create a grid-based color chart. In this video, I'm going to show you how to digitize an image to create a Grid Designer project. In this particular video, I'm going to show you how to do a latch hook project, but the same things that I'm doing here are applicable to other crafts like cross stitching and crochet and knitting. All those things apply also. Eventually, I will do some additional projects for those other crafts, but this should show you, how the digitizer works. Okay, so to get to the image digitization, we need to go through project, create from image, and this is going to create a project from us. Basically, the two ways to create a project in the Grid Designer are either new project, which was shown in the previous video, the overview of project creation, and this is the other one is to create it from an image. So we're going to do that. We select that one. Okay, and we get our create from image dialog that pops up. Okay, so now we're going to select an image. We click on the blue button. Look for the blue buttons. Those are usually the primary buttons, the things that we want to get to. And let's see. I'm going to just pick up. I have a picture of some daisies here that I kind of like to play with. So this is my daisy picture. Okay, so it loads like this. Sometimes, depending upon the orientation of the camera equipment, things like that, you might want to rotate your picture. So that can be done pretty easily just by clicking these rotate buttons here. So I'll rotate this one all the way around. And then the next thing that you can do, if you want to see just a part of the picture, you might want to do a cropping of the picture. I think I'm going to just get this kind of line of daisies that goes kind of from the bottom left corner all the way across. I think that might be kind of a nice part of this picture. It'd be something like that. Okay, so we just put the mouse down and drag across here and select a rectangular area. If you're doing this on an iPhone or an iPad, you'll need to click up here in the corner to establish one corner and click down here to establish the other corner. And then we do a crop, which brings us into that section of the picture that we cropped there, that we selected. Okay, so I think I'm going to start with that as my basic picture. So to start the digitization, I need to go down here and select a palette. It says select palette across here, and that's down here below. And I'm going to be making a latch hook rug. I'm going to select Hirschner's latch hook rug yarn to see how that comes out. It's looking a little pink at the moment. Let's see if we can't change that a little bit. If we add a little bit of brightness in here. Now, so down here are options that you can use to modify the picture. They're modifying this picture that's up above here, and then that picture is used to digitize to make this picture. Okay, and so there's some things you can do here. So if I can make it a little bit brighter, I can add some contrast to it, which basically is going to make the lighter colors lighter and the darker colors darker. So think of that as contrast. Saturate is going to saturate it with more color. It's going to make the colors more intense. And anything that you do in changing here, you can undo it with this undo button. So we can go back. We can go all the way back and even undo our crop. So we can do, and then we can redo those and go back to a point that we liked, where that was kind of nice. Let's do a little bit. It was a little bit brighter. I kind of like that one there. And there's still some like pinks coming in the background, so I'm gonna reduce the red in here and see if that helps. It makes it look a little greenish. Now, when you reduce the red or increase the red or something like that, you can basically kind of undo that for the most part by clicking the opposite arrow. But at a certain point, as the colors are being modified, you can lose basically some of the original information. As this becomes too red, then everything is red, and at that point, you can't get back the colors that you had originally. So the best thing to do is if you get to a point where you don't like it, is to use the undo button to get back to where you were previous to where you to use the undo button. So use the undo button to undo changes that you didn't like. Okay, so let's go back to there. Let's see. You can also add, like, we could add some blue in, see what that looks like. Nah, I don't think I like that very much. Let's see. We have some other things down here where you can make the image black and white, like that. And every time you do that, if you want to do it again, you want to undo that for sure. And this slider value down here, this will change the level. It'll change the threshold where it determines what is black and what is white. So if you slide it over to the right, it'll make the picture darker. If you slide it over to the left, it'll make the picture lighter. Okay, so you can try and find if you want a black and white photo, or if you want to change the photo so that, right now it's changing it to black and white. But once you get out into the Grid Designer, you can substitute any color you want for white and any color you want for black. And you can have a two-tone picture in that way. So this doesn't have to remain black and white. You can always use the color substitution tool when you get out into Grid Designer, the main Grid Designer, to substitute black and white for other colors. So think of it like that. So it's really creating a two-tone picture based on this threshold value down here that you can slide back and forth. Okay, you can also do a grayscale, and you can also invert the colors, which makes some interesting pictures sometimes. There's some things that I actually really like that. So that's an interesting filter down there. I'll be adding more filters as we go along. But like I said, undo will undo any of the changes that are made over on this side. Okay, if you like the changes that you've made to the photograph that you uploaded originally, you can click the Save Image button, and it will save this image. So it will save it as there's actually a larger image of that sitting in the memory of the computer that the digitizer is working on, and it's that larger image that gets saved. So your image has not been shrunk down to this level. When you save it back, it's still a fairly large image, 1178 by 853. So it's still a pretty good sized image there. Okay, on the digitizer side over here, so this is the digitized picture up here. We've got some other options down here. We have three ways of digitizing the picture, three different algorithms here. So the sharp one is the one that's done by default. And the sharp one basically just goes in and finds a single pixel in each cell and says, this is what the color is going to be. For that cell. The smoothing one does an averaging between colors. And so when I switch over here to the smooth one, if you're looking at the picture in the upper right, you will see it kind of sort of blur out a bit. Okay, so that's smooth and that's sharp. Okay, there's not a whole lot of difference in this particular picture, but in some pictures that makes an enormous difference. There's also a block, which produces in a picture like this, it produces a very close picture to the same, close to the same as the sharp algorithm does. But when you're dealing with some flat colors, and I'll be creating some more demos as I go along here, I can show you where this block comes in useful. So I think basically we're going to pick sharp or smooth here, and those are the two that are probably the primary ones that you would want to pick for your photograph. So now down here we have sizing information. Right now this is showing at 300 cells across. Horizontally it's 300 cells by 217, which is pretty good sized, but we don't have any other units over here like inches or centimeters. So we'd like to know and like to know how big this is going to be. If I was making a rug like this, how many inches is this rug going to be? And that has, and in order to determine that amount, that information, you have to go over here and say define units. And you need to define that this is the latch hook project. And we need to pick a particular type of mesh. And the last couple things that I've done, I've been doing with the 5 mesh. I like that for the digitizer because it gives you quite a bit more detail than the 3.75, which is fairly common. Okay, so we're going to look at this. Now, the thing that we notice here is that this is pretty good sized. At 300 cells across, it is 60 inches by 43 inches. And that's a lot of latch hooking to do. And I don't really need a rug that's that big. So I'm going to put this in at 30 inches. So you can change any of these values. I changed this 30 inches, which was the width of the rug. And you can change, I could change this one down here if I want this to be 20 inches. It will recalculate. It will recalculate as long as this keep aspect ratio is checked. So as long as that is checked, then it will maintain the same ratio height to width as the original image. If you wanted to change this to stretch it in one way or the other, that is possible also. So let's say that I really do want this to be 30 inches because it's going to fit somewhere. And it bothers me that it's 21.8. So what I'm going to do is just go and I'm going to turn off the aspect ratio, and I'm going to say, what would it look like if I stretched the picture out to be 30 by 20 inches? Okay, 30 by 20 is this way. So it's stretched it out just a little bit so that it fits in exactly 20 by 30 inches. Now, when I made this smaller, I kind of don't like the smoothing in here. I think that it might be better if I go with the sharp. I think the sharp looks better when it's a little bit smaller. That's giving me a little bit more detail in it. I think that's kind of pretty. I might possibly substitute some of these pinks out when I get out into the editor. It's also possible that we might be able to get rid of them by reducing the number of colors down here. So that's another possibility, the way that we can change things. But I'm getting to the point where I could do a 20 by 30 rug here. And I like the sharp better than the smooth, I think, at this point. So I got all this stuff set, and maybe let's play a little bit with the color. So now I've got 40 colors that are being used. There are, down here is a list of all the colors that are being used. And up at the top, it tells you there are 40 used and there are 79 available. It doesn't mean that you could actually get 79, that you might get 79 colors total, but let's see what happens if we put in 79. Okay, so the most that actually used, even if we went up to 79 here, was 41 colors. It just doesn't have a match for those other colors. So we're not far off from at 40 colors. We have some of these that are being, some that are, the number next to these indicates the number of cells. Or you can think of it, if you're doing a latch hook rug, it's a piece of yarn. You know, it's 9. There's only 9 cells on here that use dark beige. So there's only 9 little pieces of dark beige being used. Only 9 pieces of vanilla being used. And 10 and 11, such and such. So there's lots of little bits and pieces down here that are in a lot of different colors. And I bet we could probably eliminate those. We can do it one of two different ways. We could reduce this number of colors used. Let's say we make it 30. And that should reduce our some of our tail end of colors down there. That doesn't look too bad. I kind of like that. I think that still looks very pretty. Let's try 20 and see what that looks like. That's still pretty much okay. And I might go in and get rid of some of these pinks afterwards. But yeah, I kind of like that. I like this. This front daisy is looking really, really bright and pretty still. And let's just go down to 10 and just see what that looks like. Then I lost a little bit of my kind of brightness in the yellow here. Let's try 15. Getting a little bit of that back. Maybe 18. Ah, there's my yellow back. Okay, I like that. I like this little bright yellow piece that's on some of the flowers here. So I think maybe we get it down to about 18 colors. Then we're not wasting too much either, because these packets from Hirschner's come in, I think, 320 pieces per packet. And so, you know, I'm using at least about half a packet there anyway, or close to half a packet. So I don't feel like I'm wasting a lot of it that way with a lot of, you know, just using very small amounts of colors. So I kind of like that. I think that's looking pretty good for me. And I think I'm going to click the create project. So when you're done and you want to, you know, finally create your project, you just click the create project button. Okay. And then we get our daisy project, and there it is. And we can take a look at it. I kind of like to make them small. And I like to turn off the grid. Go to display, and it says hide grid here. You can turn off those gray lines, because there will be no gray lines on your rug when you when you get done. So you kind of want to look at it and see how that looks. And then I'm curious about what this color is. I've just added a new color dropper here, and it'll tell me what that color is. It's lavender. Okay. And then if I want to set the foreground or the background color to that particular color, I can do that with that dropper. Another way to determine what the colors are is to go into the display options and say show cell color. You do this, and then as you move your mouse over this, you will get a little bubble that tells you what color it is that you're over. This is pale gold, this is lavender, this is gray, that's very light blue, that's yellow, and that's pale gold. So you can see the colors in that way too. Okay. So I'm thinking what I want to do is maybe try and get rid of some of that lavender that's there. I don't know what that'll look like. I think I want my picture to be kind of small so I can see more at a like a distance. I can see the whole picture. So in order to do some substitution, and this is something that you can't do with any other editor that's online right now. If you go and digitize a picture, you get what you get, but you cannot edit it after you've finished your picture. And that's one of the things that the grid designer gives you, is the ability to go in and make changes to the picture that you've digitized. For instance, if you digitize something and you wanted to add a border around it, if we wanted to add a solid border around this, or you wanted to put some text on the top of it, or something like that, maybe it's something you're even commemorating and you want to put the date on it or something like that. That's a very easy thing to do in the grid designer. So, but what I want to do in particular is I wanted to substitute maybe this lavender color out with something else, maybe even just a gray or something like that, so that it's not quite so prevalent in there. So I will go and click, this is the substitute colors here. And if I put my mouse over some of the lavender, see how this color appears down here below this. As I move my mouse around there, it's telling me what color my mouse is over. So over here I'm over the very light blue, and then the gray and such, and then over here I'm over this lavender color. So I'm going to click on lavender, and now I can substitute. I can substitute it for something else. Okay, I have multiple ways that I can look at this list. I can I can put labels on, and I can do that. I can see the text here. I can search for something. Let's see, gray, find. Gray is not in there like that, but let's try EY. Right now it's case sensitive. That's one of the things that I'll be changing soon, but the uppercase G was what it seemed to need there in order to find the word gray. So that's one of the things that I'll be changing so that it won't be case sensitive. But maybe a really light gray. That kind of got rid of it, didn't it? Let's see. Another way that we can look at this is we can click on just the colors that are currently used. So these are the colors that are currently used in the picture. So you might want to pick something that's already there. There was this gray there already. There's also a medium gray. Let's try that. Oh, I kind of like that. I think that looks kind of good. Yeah, okay. Then there also is there's a light lavender down here, which might be okay, but let's see if we can't substitute that out. We've got used. We can also do this. We can click on this checkbox, which will give us the closest color to the color that we just picked, which is this light gray. I think I'm just going to pick that. Okay. Then there are other colors in here that you could do substitutions for. You know, you can modify the picture in a lot of ways that way. Okay. I like that. Okay, I like that better. Okay, so but that's basically what you're doing when you create a project from an image. At the end of the whole thing, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you go to the project menu and click Save. Okay, and we'll say that Daisy Rug, and we'll save this project. Now, the next thing that I would probably do is go and print this out and start looking to purchase some yarn. Now, one thing that you have to consider when you go and start a project is that the colors that are visible here on the screen may not go or look exactly the same as what they do when you're physically looking at the color in your hand. So it's a wise idea to start with a small section of the latch hook or the project, whatever you're making, and buy you know, a small amount of a few colors, and look at how that section of the rug or the project is looking as you're working it, because this is not these are digitizing an image here is not a guarantee that that will look absolutely perfect when you put the colors in there. So you have to do some of your own design work in that sense, because you are basically designing your own project from scratch. You're designing something, and you're working out the colors and thinking about what they need to be. So you want to go and you know, and you want to go slowly in terms of purchasing things, just so that you are verifying that those colors look like you expect them to look when you start working with them. So just keep that in mind, particularly if you're digitizing something really huge and you're going to buy very large amounts of yarn and that kind of thing. Do it carefully, and you know, pick out your colors one section of the rug at a time. Okay, so I think that's it for this video. I'm going to have there will be tons and tons of more videos on digitizing, because there's a million things that can be done at this point. Um, and so I want to show you all of those wonderful things that can be done. So please go ahead and click the subscribe button, and I hope you enjoyed watching. And you know, you don't want to miss any of the additional ones that are going to be coming up. Thank you very much. Bye bye.